Guys, what's up? How's it going? I want to talk about the Polymega, which is a new retro console coming out early next year, 2019. Before I dive into that, I did post a video earlier this week on the Polymega, sharing my thoughts, and I took it down. And the reason I took it down is because the last 3 minutes of that video, for some reason, I forgot to edit that video. It was really embarrassing, and I just took it down for that reason. But I also filmed that video early part of last week, and this is before all the news came out. They launched a trailer, and then all of a sudden all this information came out after the fact. And I wanted my video to be up to date as possible. So I decided to do a re-video on that and talk about my thoughts on the Polymega. First and foremost, guys, I am not trying to sell anyone on this system. I'm not trying to convince you guys to go out and buy it. I'm just simply sharing my thoughts on it. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts on it are. I'm not tied or linked to the system in any way. But what I'll say about this is, for those who don't know, it's a new console coming out. The base unit will retail for $250. You can get a pre-order now. Comes with a controller, but what's awesome, it plays, what they're claiming is it will play PlayStation 1 games, Sega CD games, TurboGrafx 16 games, Neo Geo CD games, as well as Sega Saturn, which is a lot of people are excited about because Saturn's been very, very hard to emulate. And then they have these attachments that you actually put on the top, and including the NES, Super Nintendo, Genesis / Mega Drive, as well as TurboGrafx, which is going to be huge. Those four are going to be available. And each of those modules will cost $60. They're going to release more as time goes on. But here's the deal, guys. At the time when they first saw the trailer, I was unsure if they're going to do FPGA or emulation. For those who don't know, FPGA is like a chip in some clone consoles that you use that will basically read off the cart or the CD in some cases. And it's really true to, it's basically a mini version of that system, and it's really true. It reads off well. I guess that's up. It's really accurate. The downfall of FPGA is that it will not, it's expensive. Basically, it's expensive to produce, is what it comes down to. Emulation, it's like the Retron 5. It dumps the ROM, it dumps the ROM into the hardware of the system, and it reads it off the hardware. You can't use flash carts, right? Which is, which is a disappointment for a lot of people. So there's pros and cons, but it's less expensive to produce. And up until now, recently, emulation has been a question mark, especially in regards to Saturn. I can tell you this, and I'm going to do a video soon on this unit. This is called the Odroid. This is basically a Raspberry Pi on steroids. This thing can actually play Saturn incredibly well. At 60 frames per second in HD, it plays it incredibly well. So it is possible to emulate the Saturn. It is possible. Emulation is not entirely all that bad. If you have a PSP, for example, and you played PS1 games on the PSP, you downloaded it, that's emulation. If you have a first model of the PS3 and you can play PS1 games, that's emulation. So it's certainly not a terrible thing. I think there's a bad stigma about emulation, and certainly the purists, I can see their point. They're thinking that this thing is a scam. And just full disclosure, guys, one of the biggest mistakes, I've been doing YouTube for 10 years now, and one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made was talking about the Coleco Chameleon, and I'll be the first to admit it. As a situation, it was unfortunate. I thought the guy was my friend. And anyway, he put the wool over my eyes. He convinced me otherwise. He was very, very, he sold it very well to me, and I got duped like many other people. I'm so thankful that people didn't go buy it. I'm glad it didn't come out. I'm glad at the end of the day, no one got scammed. So certainly I'm not here to push this unit on you guys. I'm not trying to push a bad product on you by all means. I'm holding off, basically what I'm doing is I'm holding off my reservations to this thing until it actually comes out, or see it in person. I have seen it in person before in the past at other shows. I was years ago when it wasn't even called the Polymega, it was called the Retro Blocks. If you look at my old videos, I was talking about it. I actually saw this thing. I saw the controller, I was able to play it, I saw the interface on how it works. And from what I saw, personally, I was impressed. But I understand there's a lot of skepticism out there in the community. I'm curious what you guys think. So I'm kind of walking on eggshells here because I don't want to say something where people are going to think I'm trying to pitch you guys on this thing, because I'm not. But I hope you guys take the opportunity to leave a comment. I'm really curious what you guys think about it. What are some modules? I think the idea, the concept itself, I think is really clever, and it is region free, which is cool. And I don't know if maybe I mentioned this before, but the modules are $60 each. I don't know, I forgot if I mentioned that before. So I think the prices are decent on this thing. Now, how I also wish that they would announce that it was not FPGA a long time ago, opposed to waiting now. I think being transparent when you're working on projects is always a good thing. I think that's one thing we can take away from the Coleco Chameleon is you have to be transparent from the beginning. Otherwise, you lose people's trust. So I do wish they could have definitely marketed this thing a little bit better. PR needs some help for them, for sure. But for me, personally, I'm excited to check it out. We'll see. Look, at the end of the day, if you don't want to get it, by all means, don't get this system. But I don't think it, if it does come out, and when it does come out, and it does pretty well, I think it's going to introduce people to retro consoles. I think that's what I'm most excited about. And I think at the end of the day, that's what we should be excited about, because it's all about the love for retro gaming. At the end of the day, it's all love for our great hobby, which is retro gaming. And if you can put more eyeballs onto that, which is in a positive light, what's wrong with that, right? So we'll see. And I think the reason why, and I'm not associated with this project, I just want to be very clear on that, but I think one of the reasons why they did not do FPGA is because of the cost. Because if they would have done FPGA, and they could very well add FPGA chips on the modules themselves, we don't know, but it's probably because of cost. And I think if we had a trade-off between doing emulation and charging $250, or doing FPGA and charging $500, or $400, which we see with Super NT and some of these clone consoles that are pretty expensive, that can get very, very expensive. And people would have been complaining about the price. So it's a double-edged sword. You can't, at the end of the day, you can't please everyone. We live in a world and a community here on YouTube, a retro gaming community, which everyone has an opinion. A lot of people have very strong opinions about things, and if you don't agree with that opinion, you're bad and shame on you, and that's really unfortunate. So either way, if you're pro, if you think this is really cool, or if you don't like this at all, I respect your opinion. Please leave it below. That's awesome. Thank you for hearing me, what I have to say. I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to me. We'll see you guys soon. Take care and game on.